Um, I mean, I know a lot of us remember this story from To Die For, but I was curious how you came to the project yourself, how you came to the story.
Lori, the producer, who is somewhere and is amazing, brought it to me. She's right there. I can't see anything, it's so bright. And I was an editor, I am an editor. I was an editor. I can't do it anymore because my back. I don't know if you guys have back problems, but you can't sit for that long after a while. But at the time I was editing, and I cut the trailer for the film right after I finished my first feature, and then Lori asked me to direct the film. And 4 years later, we're here.
I'm going to open it up to the audience. Are there questions right here?
Can you tell me how did this come to be the first televised trial?
The question was, how did this come to be the first televised trial?
It's like a perfect storm, just a confluence of cable television being widely seen and received by the public for the first time. I mean, right after this was OJ, which was the second gavel to gavel. Now, it's not the first televised trial, it's the first televised trial gavel to gavel. So that means they televised the whole thing. But that was it. It was just the perfect storm, and she just happened to be sexy enough and interesting enough and titillating enough to make it work.
Right here.
Did you confirm with the private investigator, I think it was private investigator, who said that Raymond Fowler, after his parole, what he would say to you would blow the case wide open? Did you confirm that that was what he was expecting?
That was not what he was expecting. None of us were expecting that. In fact, like she said on his blog, for years it had been saying that she was innocent. So.
Right here. The question was why the U.S. Supreme Court didn't accept the appeal.
I didn't read their reasoning for that. I apologize. We have lawyers sometimes who stand up with me and answer those kind of questions. I don't know the law that well, and I know it only in terms of this film. I do know that the case is incredibly complicated, as you know, and you know, in order for the case to be brought back up, it's probably here's the problem, which is exactly in the movie. When you appeal a case, so after she felt like she got a raw deal and she appealed, it went to the judge that convicted her. So that judge clearly had a reason not to retry the case. And then it went to the Supreme Court of New Hampshire, who also have that same reasoning because it's a very problematic case for New Hampshire history. At that point, it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court only hears so many cases. They have a huge docket. And so you have to be a case in a lot of ways that has resonance for the, you know, American public. And this case, I believe, has that resonance, but they, I guess, did not feel that it did. That's my assumption.
Back there? The question was, did she reflect on her role of inviting the media into her life afterwards to you?
Yeah, I mean, she feels like an idiot. Like, she's really intelligent. She's like a crazy smart person and incredibly well-spoken, and her life has been absolutely decimated by both the relationship she had and by the media. And so, in every way, she feels like an idiot for doing that. I mean, there's not much more to say than that. She feels like she made a lot of really horrible decisions over and over again when she was very young. But you have to keep in mind, she was 21 years old. I mean, I don't know what you guys were like when you were 21 years old, but I was really high a lot. But I feel like that, it's like you don't take into account that you're a young person, you make really, really bad decisions when you're young people, and you don't necessarily see the consequences. The boys too, you know, they weren't that young either. And I think there's something that gets overlooked, which is that, you know, young young men, 21-year-old men have relationships with 16-year-old, 15-year-old women all the time. I mean, it's rampant. A lot of my friends, and they weren't bad people, but it's seen differently, or at the time it certainly was seen differently because she was a woman. Here?
The question was, what became of Cecilia?
I think Cecilia's a bus driver, and she had a nervous breakdown. Her mother called Pam's mother at one point, or her grandmother called Pam's mother at one point and apologized. I don't know what that means. We couldn't get an interview with her. They're on Facebook.
Back here?
Would it be fair to say that in the movie, the acuity of the lady doesn't perhaps come across?
I don't know what acuity
No,
means.
I meant her intelligence, her...
Oh, absolutely. Pam's?
People talk about it, but you certainly didn't get that impression.
She clams up on
She
camera.
said in the movie.
She clams up on camera, rightfully so, and it's very hard to get a good interview with her, and that's why there's so many phone conversations in there, because she's been brutalized for so long by the camera. The camera's an oppressive thing, whether you realize it or not. I don't know if you've ever been on camera, but I find it incredibly oppressive. I would not be on camera. And so for that reason, she is not as articulate in person, or on camera, as she is in person.
Back there.
Did you verify her abuse in prison, and is it still going on?
Yeah. I mean, no, certainly she is abused in prison still. Her abuse that was in the film is definitely verified, and it was, went through court procedures, and the guy who raped her killed himself. She's singled out because of her notoriety, and that's simply what happens, I think, often. Still, a month ago or something, she was in solitary for some ridiculous amount of time, 90 days or something, for having a plastic cake knife that she'd had for years. I don't know.
Time for a couple more right there.
I thought it was a great film. It shows how we story structure our memories and even can erase our memories and replace them. And now with media, it's another storytelling format. But I thought it was ironic that despite sort of the brutality she faced in the media spotlight, she's still thinking about her life in terms of a movie. When she's thinking about when she gets released, it'll be a great image for,
And I think that's only natural. I think what happens is because you become inculcated. Look, the problem is that the media or the camera or storytelling is not inherently bad. It can be inherently good. And so there's a hope, I believe, that she has that it can change her life, that it put her in prison and maybe it can get her out of prison. But the problem is that the stories we like to tell are specifically made to titillate, and it's problematic for her because what keeps her in prison is that titillation. That I believe that, we feel disgusted by ourselves and transfer that to her. She's an easy voodoo doll in some ways.
One more, I'm going to go here.
What's your personal belief as to her innocence or guilt?
The question is, what is your personal belief as to her innocence or guilt?
I think it's human nature to want to know that question. I think we look at, Pam Smart and we want to know, is she innocent or guilty? But our legal system doesn't define things in terms of innocence or guilt for a reason. It's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's easy to say she's guilty. She's certainly guilty of having an affair. But is she guilty of the crime for which she was accused? Is there reasonable doubt? And I think there's certainly reasonable doubt. But I think there's a desire to pin something on her, to be a fall for something that she is not, is my personal belief.
Okay, well, I want to thank Jeremiah for coming and bringing the film.
Thank you all. Thank you, my friends.